Hi friends, hope you're doing well. Today I'm going to be building a city bar on the corner. Hold the city. It was kind of loosely inspired by the average city storefronts you see in urban parts of Europe, but I ran out of time before I could furnish the second floor, so we'll leave that for a future video. But that aside, without further delay, let's get into it. So we're back with a little commentary post after the fact, you know. Um, I I suppose it's kind of a running theme that I mark out the dimensions here with quartz blocks, and the typical rule of thumb whenever you're building something. I think it's like an old carpenter's term or something. Measure twice, cut once. Well, I didn't measure once, so um I just kind of put the blocks down where I thought I wanted them to go, and that was the end of it. Shockingly, the dimensions actually ended up working perfectly, which never happens. Oftentimes when I go against the grain and I do something dumb like this, obviously wouldn't recommend it. Always measure, always make sure you have the dimensions you want. Um, but yeah, it just happened to work out this time. So I guess immediately you'll probably recognize that in the final build there's a sore lack of quartz blocks, and um, kind of over the course of this video you'll see me go back on that and replace it with either stone or deep slate. So yeah, at the moment I'm just kind of I had this idea where there'd be like an overhang at each level, so it kind of the bottom floor would be the smallest dimensionally, and then you go up a floor, it comes out a little bit, go up a floor, it comes out a little bit. And then I was kind of doing this thing I had seen with windows. I watched a video on it on social media, and I thought it was a really cool idea, so I figured I'd try it. Where it was basically using these stairs and then interchanging the different types of colors of glass panes. So I just went with dark gray and white, I believe, to kind of get that effect. Um, I think it ended up looking pretty neat. I don't know that I'd do it on every build, but this kind of like vertical line pattern became a recurring theme, especially some of the places later in the build that you'll see. So I think it worked for what it was. Made a mistake with the height there, so I had to change that. I did enjoy this build. I think it was a bit more difficult in that I did kind of go back on a lot of my original ideas to kind of get what I wanted. Especially the door, as you'll see later. I really struggled with making the door work. Because I had this image where, the door is on a corner. Um, Oftentimes in Europe, in parts of Europe especially, you'll have these shop fronts that are on a corner, and the door will like just be open, and you walk in, order, and then walk out. And so that's kind of what I wanted to do, but yeah, I was really struggling with that. So But yeah, just more of me kind of replacing quartz blocks here with stone brick. I think one of the bigger issues I had with this build later that in hindsight I may go back and change is there's just not a whole lot of variety with the block type on the exterior. So and here I'm just kind of making an external staircase. I really like external staircases for my builds, especially for smaller buildings like this, because you can kind of set the dimensions that you want, um, for the interior, and how much space you're going to utilize, and then you don't have to worry about fitting in a way to get to and from the second floor. You can just attach it, and in a lot of ways it still kind of makes sense. Like, oftentimes with these sorts of buildings you'll see staircases on the outside. It won't be restricted to the interior. Yeah, so then I was kind of experimenting with some stone slabs as well. I think I'd eventually go back and change that. Added a few deep slate pillars for contrast, which my last build, you can kind of see it over there in the distance. Made me really appreciate that block, so I think in the future I really want to use more of it in the different kinds of deep slate, like maybe next time I do deep slate and something else. I don't know. But yeah, so I'm placing all these slabs, these spruce slabs. This ended up being completely wrong, and I would have to go back and change it because they're block too low. They needed to be the half block higher. So I kind of go over it, like placing the slabs over it to kind of get the same effect, but with what I wanted to do on the bottom floor, I eventually had to change that as well. So doing the same thing with those windows, the different pattern, or the same pattern, I should say. And so this was meant originally to be a residential space, a place where people would, rent out and live. So I was thinking, I could separate this into two smaller rooms, basically. I don't think there was enough space to do anything smaller than two rooms and have it still look nice, so I did that, and then I realized that the dimensions kind of bit me in the butt here. So I was like, we'll have the bigger side obviously be the one that faces the walkways. And that was kind of another bigger decision I made while building this is I had this idea of wanting, like real streets or well, not real streets, but like roadways, for cars. And then I wanted like adjacent bike paths, and then walkways, but there just isn't enough room for that. So I think the final choice I made is that it's just going to be walkways. I suppose you could ride your bike on it as well. So, obviously this is all purely hypothetical, right? There are no cars in Minecraft without mods, so but yeah, you'll see here I'm kind of going back through all those slabs I placed, so I made that mistake. And I did this kind of like a dip toward the window, which I thought added a little bit. It looked kind of cool. Um, I don't know if I have any intentions on like using it for anything other than aesthetics. Here I'm just kind of making a way up to the roof because I had another idea for adding like AC units and stuff with which I just didn't get to, unfortunately. Um, I stream all of my builds for this, so if ever you'd like to watch me do this live, I stream on Sundays. But point being that I was very sick. I still am sick, to be fair, though I've recovered quite a bit. Um, but it's pretty bad illness, so I just kind of had to cut it short because I was really feeling poor. Um, and so here's another example of those like vertical lines kind of being a recurring pattern. And we had another friend join us. This one was a little smarter. He went invisible before he decided to start making all the noise. So, um, yeah, the fact that they always spawn on you is just kind of funny to me. Um, so I replaced a lot of these uh, deep slate stairs with stone brick to kind of emphasize like structural points, and it just kind of made it ended up making it look kind of awkward. Um, so eventually I'd go back and just replace all of them, which I think was for the better. But again, in hindsight, I probably would change them for another material or stick with the fact that it's deep slate and then just have it wrap around the entire build again as it was originally. Um, you know, you make mistakes, you learn from them. That's what it's all about. So this is me working on the doorway, and yeah, I really struggled with this. Obviously, in Minecraft, you can't work with diagonals, so you kind of have to figure out how you're gonna make the doors look on a diagonal. And I really wanted to make this like single door look work. Um, I just don't think it looked great. And I really tried, but eventually, like, yeah, you'll see, like that just looked terrible. Um, there's no way you could see the doors at all. So eventually, I just went for the double doors, which I think looked a lot nicer. You and that's what I would end up sticking with. But yeah, hard to do corner buildings in Minecraft, but I think it was a good challenge to figure out some of this stuff because obviously I don't do it very often, and that's really what I want a lot of this to be like these streams, these videos, is to put myself out of my comfort zone as far as building is concerned, but still also use um, some of the techniques that I've used for a long time. Um, yeah, so we basically finish up all the windows on the top floor, and then I'm working on this lip on the roof, and I'm trying to figure out whether I want it, kind of offset a block back, which is what I think I went with eventually, but lower profile. Um, building this tall, I don't think would benefit a whole lot from having a really tall roof. Um, well, I don't know about that actually. Is if I can make a roof good enough to justify its height, I think it could look pretty nice. But I'm not very good at roofs, so maybe that's something for the future. Maybe I do that next time. We try to do like there are a bunch of names for the roof types. I don't remember them. But basically the one that comes to a very uh you know, what's the word? Not insane, but like very tight peak. I don't know, right? Very narrow peak, right? Like the top of a mountain or something. Um, like that could be pretty neat. And this is definitely a build that is going to see improvements in the future. I think I had a few other ideas for builds that I wanted to do, but I think next video may just be a lot of furnishing, which I think will be a good thing because it's another thing I wouldn't say I'm particularly great at. So it's a good opportunity to learn some new techniques, figure out how to do certain things. Um, yeah, so I was just kind of extending the pathway out there, obviously. And then I think here I'm gonna enclose the back finally. I don't really know why I waited so long to do that. Okay, I'm gonna light it up a little bit. It's nice. You can finally see, right? Um, yeah, so more deep slate, like pillars, columns, whatever you want to call them. Vertical lines. Um, so yeah, eventually I'm gonna start working on the bar, which I gave, I think, enough room. As with bars, with pubs, obviously the bar takes up probably like 60% of the space inside. This is probably more about like 30 to 40% of the space, but yeah. I also saw this idea for stools online that I really thought was cool, and I wish I would have thought of it myself. Where it's basically you use a piston and you extend it, and then you put a trap door on the back of it, and then bang, you have a stool. And it looks really cool. So I put that line of slabs over there just to give it more of an effect as to that you're sitting there at a bar, because obviously without it would have looked a little weird. I also added some signs to the back and to the sides to make them look a little nicer. So obviously with a bar you need a brewing stand. I think that makes sense. And then I kind of wanted to do, like the tap, right? And I couldn't think of a good way to do it, so I just ended up doing more barrels that had been tapped. And, I don't know, I used like different ores and resources. I don't know, like maybe it's diamond ale or redstone cider or something. We can use our imagination, right? So I took a little bit of a break from the bar because I wanted to do some stuff with the upper floors, like just kind of make sure that the sides were separated. So I did struggle a bit with this as well. I guess struggling with doors is just kind of the theme here. But yeah, I wanted something here because obviously this is just kind of like a lot of dead space otherwise. Haha, Dead Space. I haven't played Dead Space. That's a spooky game. But yeah, so I experimented with quartz, didn't like it, went back to stone brick as I do. I put these new pots that they added here. I know you're supposed to put something in them to then put a flower on them. I couldn't figure out what it was, and I have yet to look it up. So, maybe someone could tell me. Um, would love to know. Still experimenting. I decided, yeah, to do this thing with the stone brick walls. And obviously the trapdoors. And then maybe you could put like a smaller plant in there or something. I don't know. Yeah, so then I seal this side up as well. Um, pop a couple pots down. That's alliteration, folks. And then I pretty much called it there. I didn't even light up the top floor. So that's pretty much the last we'll see of it. You can tell I was not in the best mental state. Very cloudy mind. Yeah, so we'll put the lectern down, you know. You often do see this at certain bars. Do you see it in Europe? That's a great question. I don't remember. But yeah, so we go back to this kind of three chair seating style with a table in the middle and then a couple booths as well that I also used in the last build. I think, you know, it'd be nice to kind of have like another style in my toolbox as far as how to do seating in a space like this, but you know, I'm not really working with a whole lot of space, to be fair. So, you know, I think a lot of the alternatives, that at least that I've seen, utilize a lot more space. So you're not going to have as many, you know, available tables. Here I just kind of thought this might be another opportunity to put a pot in. There we go. I do actually get to do an idea I had last time, which is doing the hanging lantern here. I completely forgot to put it on the other booth, but we'll forget about that. And then we do it to the other tables as well. And, you know, maybe I could do something on top of that to give it like a real, I don't know, lamp effect. I don't know what I'm saying. You know, like maybe just tweak it a little bit to make it look a little nicer instead of it just being a lantern on a chain. But yeah. So here I'm kind of figuring out how I'm gonna light up the outside. I experimented with trapdoors, wasn't a huge fan. Then I went to the stairs. Didn't like that, but then I did that. And I was like, oh, that looks kind of nice. And then I think I actually kind of like this in hindsight, where I extend the slabs across. You know, maybe I use like deep slate for that or something. That could be cool. There's a few other things as well. I think I would have liked to have done a sign that kind of hangs over the walkways, you know, because oftentimes you'll see that. Um, Again, it's certainly a work in progress. I think it was more just getting the foundation for everything and figuring out like what the build was going to look like on a macro scale, you know. How it was gonna fit into the setting around it. Um yeah. Here I'm doing kind of my calling card, which is running water. Had to fit it in somewhere, so I was like, why not here? And then there we go. I think I put a lantern there as well, just to give it a little light. Yeah. And then I think that's about it as far as, yeah, as far as the build is concerned. Initially. To be tweaked, to be adjusted, right? But yeah, I really appreciate you all for joining me as always. I had a great time building this, even through my illness. So yeah, that's all I got for you. As I always say, until next time, guys, take it easy. Peace.